Hey guys, thanks for joining me. My name is Douglas, and I remember back years ago when I was first getting into music, and trying to understand the difference between audio and MIDI really took me some time to understand. My goal with this video is to show you the simple differences between audio and MIDI, as well as different cases demonstrating when each is best used during music production. By watching this video, I hope that you understand better what the differences are, when to use each of them, and then the pros and cons of each. So with that, I have pulled up here a sample song that I put together for this video that should help demonstrate visually the differences between audio and MIDI. As you can see, I'm using Tracktion as my recording software, and in this song I have two tracks. The first track you see here is an audio track. You can see here what are called waveforms that give you a visual representation of the sounds that are in this audio file. Instead of individual notes being captured separately, audio recordings represent the sound the actual instrument is making, whether it's acoustic or electric. And if I double click this track, it'll expand out the waveform so you can see in greater detail the complexity and volume of the audio that was recorded. This is a stereo track, so you see two waveforms here. And when I hit play, you can watch as the sounds correspond with the waveforms that are shown on the screen. Although there is software out there that enables you to modify the notes that are being played in the waveform, there's really no easy way to edit the specific notes you hear without extra software. For example, in this section here, I play a few wrong notes. Because the notes are captured into this single waveform, I can't easily edit those bad notes out. My best and easiest option is really to re-record this section of audio or this audio file to fix those problem notes. If you've ever been in a recording session, you may have heard the term punch in, punch out. This is where the engineer will only re-record portions of the track to correct the problem area. So if our problem area is right in this here, he may punch in and out right here and re-record those problem areas. Usually this occurs on the fly as the recording is being done. As trying to correct the waveforms after the fact is much more difficult than doing it while you have, whether it's the vocalist or the instrumentalist in there recording. It's easier to do it right then. One advantage with audio tracks is that they're already in the perfect form to export to WAV or MP3 files for playback on virtually any device, because both are in fact the same thing, audio. What you're seeing here is actually a WAV audio file, and I'm just seeing a visual representation of that. Let's collapse this track here. The second track you see here is a MIDI track. As you can see, the visual representation is quite different from the audio track. Although it's hard to see while the track is collapsed, when I expand the track by double clicking it, you can see that all the individual notes are captured and shown here. When recording a MIDI track, the only thing you're actually recording is the data behind the notes that are being played and the controls that are being triggered, such as a damper pedal or a pitch wheel. MIDI is often used when playing a keyboard or a controller type interface that has the ability to transfer its notes digitally either by a MIDI cable or USB cable to your recording station. When recording a MIDI track, because only the data is captured, the MIDI track requires a playback device in order to hear any actual sound. This can be a virtual synth like I have here. This is Addictive Keys piano plugin, and I'm using that as my playback device for this MIDI track. I could also send it back to the keyboard that I recorded it with. So if I have a keyboard plugged into my computer and I used that, maybe I didn't even use it to record this, but when I play this back, if I send it back to the right MIDI channel on the keyboard, whatever sound I have called up on the keyboard will play these notes that are being played on the computer. In any case, with this track here, I have it traveling through this virtual instrument, which acts as the playback device, translating the data you see here, all of these individual notes, into actual sounds that we can hear. So let's solo this track because I don't want to hear the audio track right now. So I click solo and we'll play this track. One benefit to recording in MIDI is the ability to edit the notes after the recording process has been completed. For example, in the section here where I had the mistake chord that I was playing, you can see right down here is my mistake note. So the difference here is I can actually go in, compared to the audio, is I can go in and I can take this and I can actually delete. I could also move them around. I could add in notes. As you can see here, I could draw in a note and place that wherever I want in here, change the length of it. Depending on your recording software, you'll have different controls to modify the MIDI, but this will give you the gist of it. As you can hear now, when I play this back, the problem notes that we heard before are gone. This took minimal effort on my part as an engineer and provides me with a little bit more flexibility than with an audio track. One question that I come across a lot is, after the MIDI notes have been recorded, how do I convert this track to an audio track to export to WAV or MP3? Because if I don't have a playback device here, if I delete this virtual instrument plugin and I try to export this to an audio file, it's going to say that it doesn't have any audio because all we have here is the data. The easiest option, of course, is to use virtual instruments. If you're using a virtual instrument plugin, the plugin acts as the audio playback device. And when you export the track, it should automatically route the MIDI through the plugin to produce an export that's an auditable audio file. If you're not using a virtual instrument, but instead have a playback device such as a keyboard or something like that that's external to your computer, the process is a little bit more time consuming. The best option I've seen and used is, once you have your final MIDI track, you make sure that the keyboard is plugged into the computer as an audio device as well, either through the keyboard if the keyboard has an audio device built in, or through some other type of audio interface that can record the sounds on the keyboard. You create an additional audio track in your recording software, and while keeping the MIDI track active, you play back the MIDI track to the keyboard and record the audio track of the keyboard playing. So simultaneously, while you're recording the audio track and playing back the MIDI track, the MIDI is sending the data to the keyboard, playing the sound that you have called up on the keyboard back through the audio track and recording the audio of the keyboard. In the end, you end up with two tracks, the MIDI track with the data and the audio track with the audible results of that data. At this point, the MIDI track could be inactivated as it holds no bearing against the audio track that you recorded. So then in that audio track becomes what you would export. So that process is a little bit more complicated, but definitely works to turn this MIDI into an audio file. So which is better, audio or MIDI? I mean, in my opinion, it depends on what you're recording and what you want to do with these tracks throughout the recording production process. If you're recording instruments that aren't capable of producing MIDI notes, such as vocals, you really only have one option, and that's audio. If you're recording an instrument that is capable of producing MIDI notes, maybe a keyboard or some other MIDI device, I would say it comes down to what you want to do during the recording process. If you want the ability to edit the individual notes after the recording is complete, and don't mind the extra process to convert the MIDI tracks to audio at the end, then MIDI is your best option. In either case, there really isn't a winner or a loser, but it really comes down to your personal preference. I used to lean more towards recording audio tracks due to their simplicity, but more recently I've been using more MIDI tracks due to the flexibility that it gives me in modifying the individual notes being played. I've also been using virtual instruments more, which only function off of MIDI tracks, and make the export process no more painful than exporting audio tracks because it automatically routes this MIDI data through your virtual instrument. If you're still confused at the difference between audio and MIDI, look at it this way. Audio is the actual sound your ears can hear, while MIDI has no audible sound and instead is the data behind the notes that are being triggered. So it shows all of the specific notes triggered that make up the audio file that we hear up here. I hope this explanation has been helpful to you, and if you have any questions, please comment below and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for more videos in the future. Thank you and happy recording.